Morality has to do with our concept of what is right and wrong, how to integrate our faith into those decisions. Now, we all know that the commandment of Jesus is to love God with all our heart, mind, and soul, and love our neighbor as ourself. In this way, Jesus had summarized the greatest commandments. He's actually drawing from the Old Testament and then finding this nice summary within the book of Deuteronomy. As Jesus picks these out, the scholar of the law, meaning the scholar of the Old Testament, understands that this is absolutely the right answer. It is a great summation of everything. I think sometimes we oversimplify that into saying, in this, Jesus is saying, the rest of the rules don't matter. Just love God above all else, love your neighbor as yourself, and you're good. But that's not really what he's saying. What he's saying is all of the laws are contained within these. Now, within that, there are three understandings of love. First, love God. Love God above all things. Love God with all your heart, mind, and soul. So love God. Second, love your neighbor. Who is your neighbor? He gives a wonderful parable about the Good Samaritan, where the person is walking, he sees a person beaten on the side of the road, does nothing to help. Then along comes a priest, sees the same person, crosses the other side, does nothing to help. And then along comes the Samaritan, realizing that this is not one of his fellow countrymen, but nonetheless, because he is in need, he is his neighbor and takes good care of him. And Jesus said, who's the neighbor? Well, it's the one who does the right thing. So take care of those who are in need. But interesting the way Jesus says it, love your neighbor as yourself. So there's a third love there, to love yourself. So the application of the law of God requires us to look at three different spheres, looking at how we love God, how we love others, and how we love ourselves. When C.S. Lewis was writing, he talked about the morality being like a ship. Now, if the ship is in ship shape, it's not going to sink. It's well taken care of. The hull is solid. The masts are ready for use. It's nice and clean. The ship shape is like looking at ourself. You need to keep yourself ship shape. Make sure you're taken care of. But then he says that's not the only thing. If the ships don't coordinate with each other, they'll ram each other. And that, of course, is not good for anybody. Then they'll end up sinking into the ocean. So they need to coordinate with each other so that they keep each other safe, so that they're not bumping into each other and that they're kind of on this parallel setting. Then he says, but there is a third thing, their destination. It's one thing to just, be ship shape and coordinate with the others, but you could just go forever in a circle in the ocean. You got to remember what's your destination so that we all go together toward that destination. And that, of course, when we're talking about the morality, we're talking about our destination to make it to heaven, to make it to God's plan, what God has envisioned for us. So when we look at the first part, ship shape, love yourself, it means that we respect our own life, that we take care of our health, that we do not compromise our freedom, but we use our freedom with responsibility. And that we continue to develop our skills, our abilities, our maturity. That we recognize that we have gifts that, given enough attention, they become something that we can offer to others, something that'll take care of us. Perhaps some examples of messing this up might be if somebody overindulges in alcohol and becomes addicted to alcohol. So they've limited their freedom, they've limited their gift of thinking, they've spent their money that could have been resources used for other things. This is not good for the individual. Or somebody who is engaging in self-harm actions, whatever that might be, perhaps they're bulimic, perhaps they're cutting themselves. Those things we would say are immoral because they harm the individual. You are a good person and you need to be respected. Study. We think it is actually a human right to have access to some level of education and that we should take advantage of that. Continue to develop your mental skills as well as your understanding of the world around us, and when it comes to spiritual, understanding what has been revealed to us. What about sleep? You got to take care of yourself, and that includes sleeping. We are not just meant to go, go, go. God designed us to rest, to sleep. We all know how it feels to have a good night's sleep. And when we don't have a good night's sleep, we're very cranky, and that changes our attitude about everything. Proper diet. This is where I'm not so good at. You know, you got to take care of your body. You got to bring into your body that which is healthy for you and that which is not going to make you sick for the long run. Not just go for what's tastiest, but going for what's going to make you healthy, and do it in the right proportions. Exercise, you got to make sure that you're ready to walk, to lift things, to help other people. We can't do that if we are not taking care of ourselves by exercising, making sure we stay physically fit to do so. The key to all of this is moderation. Not just indulge in what we like, but doing a moderate amount of each of these things so as to keep ourselves balanced. And in moderation, we stay balanced. The trap that we have to watch out is self-indulgence. When we like something, we tend to want to do more and more of it, but our experience is that ends up harming us in the long run. So self-indulgence, self-centeredness, although we're saying that taking care of the self, being ship-shape is good, it's not the only good. And sometimes we get self-centered. Or to look for the short-term benefits and ignore the long-term consequences. Those are the traps we need to avoid. The second level, where we're talking about coordinating with the other ships, the sense of community, the sense of who is my neighbor. Again, the law of love comes into this. We are to respect others. Now, if you love yourself, now you know how to love others. Treat them the way they want to be treated. Well, how do I know how they want to be treated? By the way that I want to be treated. I want to be treated with respect and love. And so that's how we do it. We put on an empathy. I understand what people are like because people are people. They're all pretty much the same. I know what they're expecting. It doesn't mean do whatever they tell me they want, but do what's really good for them because that's what I want. I don't want you to, if I say, give me whatever's in that box, but there's a rattlesnake in that box and I didn't know it, it would be wrong for me to give it to them. Well, they asked for it. No, to do what they actually want, what is actually good for them, and we can use empathy to understand what the other person might want. We don't limit other people's freedoms. We give them the information they need. This is one of the things with advertising. We don't lie to them in advertising. We give them the proper information so that they can make a good decision, because otherwise they're not free in making those decisions. They don't have the tools to make a free decision. Nor do we enslave somebody, force them into doing something they shouldn't do. We take care of their health, just making sure that the other person is healthy. If you see somebody in need, like the parable said, go and help them, take care of them. But not only that, don't do risky things that might risk the health of other people. And don't just say, well, my factory is spewing out a bunch of smoke, but at least I made a lot of steel. But take into consideration, what are the consequences of that smoke? Does it endanger the health of other people? Development. We need to help other people develop as well. Like I said, this is part of our understanding of human rights. If there are people in developing nations that we would want them to help us if we needed help, we should help them in their development as well. And of course, a recognition of the gifts that other people have. Everybody needs to be recognized that they have gifts. Otherwise, they feel useless, they feel unimportant. And to recognize the gift that somebody has is not just saying they're good at all things, but they're good at this. And give them a chance to use their gifts. Even if they're not as good as other people, give people a chance. The key is being empathetic, to treat other people with compassion, with a sense of, I know what life is like for me. Your life is not all that different from mine. Therefore, I do know what you need, at least to a certain level. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. The trap would be to do so at the expense of ourselves, that I now diminish my own health, I now enslave myself, or I disrespect my own dignity just for the sake of the other person. It is not just do for everyone else to the expense of myself. I am able to do sacrifice for other people, but I'm not able to, totally, my self-worth, my self-dignity, my rights should not be expendable. We shouldn't just do things to appease other people, but to really look for their true good, which takes wisdom, which takes study, which takes patience. To seek not just the honors of other people, not just the favors of other people, not just so other people would appear good in their eyes, but to do what is truly good for them, even when they're not looking. Then we come to the destiny, the where are the ships going? What is the final voyage? What is it that God wants us to do? What is God's plan, and how do we please the Lord? Now, this is really about who we are. We are the only creatures God ever created that ever thought about who made me. And in the process of doing that, we came to a relationship with God and desire to please the Lord, desire to honor and praise the Lord. And this is what the Lord wants. So he actually taught us how to do that. If you look at the commandments that God gave us, the 10 Commandments or the other laws that God gave us, we can say that it is truly God's desire for us to go to heaven. It is God's desire that we do good and avoid evil. It is God's desire that we do what is best for ourselves, for our community, and in the process giving honor and praise to God. So that it's all really, every law that God has actually has a reason behind it. It is not arbitrary things. It's not like God saying, this is my favorite color, arbitrarily picking one. But he says things like, I want you to rest once a week. And I want you to honor me by doing so. Because guess what? You, as a human being, you need rest. You need rest. So I want you to do that. In the Jewish days, they didn't have the health codes that we have. So he wanted them to avoid eating pork. Of course, that was a health concern, if they could get trichinosis. So the Lord didn't arbitrarily pick things. However, because they didn't understand fully the law, the reason that God did make these rules, they made it a symbol. That's what God asked us to do. Think of a mother trying to talk to a child. Well, why? Well, why? Well, why? And the mother finally says, because I said so. And in some way, we've taken our morality as kind of saying, well, it's because God said so. But God has a reason behind it, and it's mostly for our collective good, the good of the individual as well as the good of the community. Even though sometimes it does require sacrificing the immediate desires, the immediate goods, for the long-term goods, or it sacrificing some of the immediate, tastes or pleasures for the sake of something better, something later on. So the Lord's laws are all about that. It's about teaching us how to be the best version of ourselves, and that actually pleases and gives praise to God.